Good morning, students. We have already seen in this chapter that how as the society was getting more and more complicated and complex, and more people from different geographies, from different faith systems, from different cultures, then who used to profess different cultures, when they started joining the mainstream, when they started coming out of their own habitats, and when they started coming out of their own isolation, and then they started joining uh, the more urban societies. Naturally, we came to know more and more uniqueness about those communities than what we used to practice, because more and more people as more and more people started joining the fold, it became very abundantly clear to the Brahmins and to the administrators and the people who used to govern, that yes, they were different people. Of course, we might be having a lot of things as common, but then there were also stark differences and dissimilarities among us. And so that is why new rules, new laws had to be promulgated, and we had to devise them so that the society as a whole could run and function smoothly without friction, basically. And um, and that is how there were a lot of there, that is how the concept of jatis came about, and that is how different people from different jatis who had different professions, students, you have to always remember one thing, that yes, the when we talk about the four varna system mentioned in Rig Ved, it clearly says that people would be belonging to, or would be affiliated to, different varnas based on what their occupation was. And that is how even the jatis were divided based on the occupation. There was no kind of, the rule was the same, the formula, or in mathematical terms, that was used to solve that equation, or that mathematical problem, remained the same, right? But yes, today, because we are humans, we have a habit of complicating things rather than solving them. We are complicated creatures ourselves, so naturally we complicate things wherever we go. And that is what happened with the varna system, and that is what happened with the jati system, whereby it was, of course, based on the basis of profession, as well as I had made it very clear. Like, for example, someone who would be having his skill in cutting of the hair, and the body massage and that kind of stuff, he would be the community, the jati of Nai. Now, yes, something who would be good at probably extraction of alcohol, making beer, making booze, making all these kind of drinks, he would be from a different community altogether, and then he would be naturally given a different jati. Now, students, you have to understand that the Brahmins never said that nai should be given more respect or less respect, or the liquor maker needs to be given more respect, or a less amount of respect compared to a goldsmith. A Brahmin would never say that. But then it was our forefathers who, based on the economic status of the people of different jatis. For example, it is obvious that a nai or a barber would not be making the same amount of money as a goldsmith would. Not even in his wildest dreams. Do you think uh, a barber, or for that matter, a person who extracts oil, would be making the same amount of money as a goldsmith, or for that matter, an ironsmith would be making the same amount of gold as money as the goldsmith? Certainly can't. But then, based on the kind of money and the affluence that they had, they used to be given respect within the society. Don't we do it now, even? Don't we do it today, that if someone comes out of his Bentley and drives probably a Porsche or probably a Maserati, you look at that gentleman in a different kind of fashion compared to someone who is just driving an Alto? Don't we do that even now? Yes, we do all the time. right? So let us not say that, because we are class 12 students, you have to think rationally. So let us not say that yes, the Brahmins would be responsible for it, because even today, in spite of so-called constitution guaranteeing all that equality and fraternity and whatnot, we still behave the same fashion, the way human beings always have 5,000 years ago. Of course, yes, we are much more evolved now, but then our basic instincts remain the same. Yes, someone, a very rich guy who enters probably a function or a meeting, people leave their chairs. Yeah, sir, baithiye, sir, baithiye. And then probably if a poor man in tattered clothes, even if he wants to enter that meeting or a campus or an auditorium, the gatekeeper would not allow him to. Because he is in his rugged and tattered clothes, so he's good for nothing. So does the society not behave that way? It always has. So, do you think Brahmins should be blamed for it? Or the Veda system should be blamed for it? No. That's how we always have been. We are human beings and we are full of faults. Yes, we must continuously strive to, remove those faults and remove those problems from within the society. And there are a lot of people within the society who actually do that. So that's what you have to understand. And continuing today with gendered access to property, uh, again, they have taken reference to Mahabharat, because Mahabharat, essentially, students, encompasses a whole, the whole gamut of human emotions. It talks about Kshatriyas, it talks about Brahmins, it talks about poor people, it talks about rich, how rich live, the status of women in those societies, whether even if she happened to be someone as from the royal family like Draupadi was, she could still be subjected to huge amount of humiliation. That's why Mahabharat has been taken as a test case. Now, gendered access to property, coming to the second paragraph of this topic, rather, is issues of ownership foreground in stories such as Mahabharat also figure in the Dharma Sutras and Dharma Shastras. According to the Manusmriti, which is, as you have seen, often mentioned in this chapter, the paternal estate was to be divided equally among sons after the death of the parents, with special share for the eldest. Women could not claim a share of these resources. However, women were allowed to retain the gifts they received on the occasion of their marriage as Stri Dhan, literally a woman's wealth. This could be inherited by their children without the husband having any claim on it. At the same time, the Manusmriti warned women against hoarding family property or even their own valuables without the husband's permission. You have read about, wealthy women such as Vakataka Queen Prabhavati Gupta. However, cumulative evidence that is collected, both epigraphic and textual, suggests that while the upper class women may have had access to resources, land, cattle, and money, were generally controlled by men. In other words, social differences between men and women were sharpened because of the differences in access to resources. Now, students, this was the same story in any civilization contemporary at that point in time. Whether you want to study the Mesopotamian civilization, you want to study the Roman civilization, the Greek civilization, the Chinese one, it was the same story. And we can't talk about North America because no one has an idea, if about the history of Americas, and that is at least in North America. Latin America, of course, very much. You had Incas and the Aztecs. So that's how it was. Uh, the condition of women was that way in all the societies. Now, you have read about the wealth women, yes, you be. How could men and women acquire wealth? Now, for men, Manusmriti declares there are seven means of acquiring wealth: inheritance, finding, purchase, conquest, investment, work, and acceptance of gifts from good people. For women, there are six means of acquiring wealth: who was given in front of the fire or the bridal procession, or as token of affection, and what she got from her mother, brother, or father. She could also acquire wealth through any subsequent gift and whatever her affectionate husband might give her. Now, Varna and access to property. According to Brahminical texts, another criteria, apart from the gender, for regulating access to wealth was Varna. As this is important, students, and as we saw earlier, the only occupation prescribed for Shudras was servitude. Now, what is servitude, students? Here would it means absolute obedience, not just obedience, but absolute obedience. While a variety of occupations were listed for men of the first three Varnas, if these provisions were actually implemented, the wealthiest men would have been Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, uh, and that this corresponded to some extent with social realities is evident from descriptions of priests and kings in other textual traditions. Kings are almost invariably depicted as wealthy. Priests are also generally shown to be rich, although there are occasional depictions of poor Brahmins. Students, you have to understand that, uh, uh, you know, mm, uh, wealth was always the criteria based on which people have been giving each other respect. You have to understand that. It is no point talking about how oppressive the Indian system or the Hindu system was, because everywhere on the planet it was the same rule whereby the wealthy got more respect than someone who did not have money. And here, because we sticking to Mahabharat, there are plenty of examples, but I will stick to Mahabharat. What was the condition of Dronacharya, who before he became the Rajguru of Hastinapur? Dronacharya, his family used to live in abject poverty and extremely poor. Though Dronacharya was a Brahmin, right, and he was the son of one of the Sapt rishis, that is Bharadwaj Muni, a very illustrious lineage and pedigree, yet lived in abject poverty. And his son, Ashwatthama, you might have even read about that. Ashwatthama's early days, he didn't have milk to drink, his because Dronacharya didn't have any work, and Ashwatthama he was made fun of because of his father was so poor, that people used to make the children of his age used to make fun of him, that have you seen milk, what it tastes like, have you ever tasted it? Just imagine. It was only after Dronacharya became the Rajguru, and he was employed by Bhishma Pitama to train in military warfare the princes of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, that the fortunes of Guru Dronacharya actually changed, and then he started actually leading a comfortable life. So, students, he was a Brahmin, but extremely poor, and he did not enjoy any kind of respect, even among Brahmins, or within his community at all. So, students, you have to understand, it has always been about how much wealth do you have, how much money do you have. Whether in those years the currency used to be the gold coins or the silver coins, or how much of land you possessed, or how many animals did you have in your stable, uh, because that was considered to be the manifestation of wealth. So you have to understand that these things were extremely critical and in giving you an identity and your profile and your status within the society. It had nothing to do with varna here, because we are humans. We always give and accord respect to people we find more wealthy and more affluent, and that is how it has always been. So we shall continue. Thanks.